Let's talk about this big UFO event in Washington, D.C. We're going to highlight and document the historic day in Washington, D.C., where multiple UFO whistleblowers came forward to share their story at the press club. Dr. Stephen Greer, his disclosure project, of course, you'll remember many moons ago, over a decade ago, he held one of these events before, and he kind of started off by explaining that the world kind of wasn't ready for that press conference at the time. Members of Congress and so forth weren't really ready for the disclosure and the people that came forward, those testimonies that came forward that day at that event. So this whole event took over 3 hours, close to 4 hours, with jaw-dropping moments. I mean, bombshell moments. I want to show you a number of those moments now, and I'm going to save the most amazing, what I believe is the most amazing, for the end. So you got to stick around for this. So anyway, Dr. Greer started off by explaining that they know these are the things they've turned over to Congress, Senate, and the White House for part of this testimony. Here's the list of things that they sent out, which is the Disclosure Project slide, Project Intelligence Archive, and contains government documents from the United States, Canada, Australia, Russia, the UK, and more. 145 top secret bases, 752 witnesses from military, corporate, government solutions, files with witness testimony and some video with supporting documents and information, 121 UF crash retrieval cases. Some documents includes name of witness, et cetera, et cetera. So he went through all of this, explaining that this is the stuff they were handing over. Here is Dr. Stephen Greer, though, showing the map locations of these secret bases in the United States. Look at the number of secret military bases inside the United States and what's being worked on at these secret military bases from witnesses who've come forward and have actually worked at these bases. Watch.
Operations have happened. I'm saying illegal because we can prove that this information, as Senator Inouye said, you'll hear his statement in a moment, has been run by a very shadowy, deep black operation. And we're not talking the legal black budget of the United States. We're talking about projects that presidents and CI directors and secretaries of defense and members of the Congress who have a need to know and are cleared TSSCI in SCIFs, secure compartmented information facilities, have been blatantly either gaslit, denied access. That is the foundation of everything we've done, is that these projects are a priori illegal and therefore unconstitutional and have to be reined in, because not doing so is a threat to the national security. So here is your list. I'm not going to go through 145 sites. Some of them are black sites. Some of them are bases you know about, like Wright-Patterson, Edwards, Nellis, Area 51, so-called. But all of them are based on witness testimony and intelligence we've gathered over the last 30 years, and it's time for it to be disclosed.
Here is Dr. Stephen Greer.
Wait, can I just push you on this map that he has with all the red dots? These are bases that are actively working on UFO projects. These are not just sightings, right? Because
no. These are military bases. Many of them we know, right? Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Edwards Air Force, but some of these but then many of them on this map are black sites that we don't know about. So that was included in this map. So, and he also showed around the world. So these are not just United States military bases. These are black sites in other parts of the world.
In other countries, because he mentions Russia, but then when you look at the map, I'm just playing it back. There's no bases in Africa at all. None in the Middle East.
That we know of.
One in Pakistan.
That we know of.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm just curious about.
So I don't know all of them, but these are the ones that they have actual human beings who've confirmed this, have shown them documents, videos, security badges for these black sites, all sorts of testimony. And by the way, these people have then gone to Congress and submitted their testimony to Congress, which you can go to prison for lying to Congress. Like, you don't just do that if you don't actually have some facts to back that up. These whistleblowers who've come forward, and the reason they've come forward is because the whistleblower protection laws, they were silenced before the whistleblower protection laws. That's why they're now able to come forward. So Greer makes the point that alien craft, so the first of many reasons here the whistleblowers haven't come forward before is because in many cases their lives were threatened. They were told they would be killed if they came forward on the stuff that they saw. They're worried about their family's protection. They're worried about losing their pensions. Many of them signed 80-year non-disclosure agreements 80-year non-disclosure agreements to keep quiet about it. Greer makes the point that the alien craft we have are not the issue. It's the deep state, the off-the-books operations that is running all of this. They've been they have their own versions of these craft. They're carrying this out, and the White House is kept out of it. Congress has been kept out of it and in the dark about it. And you're starting to hear more of this because now Congress is demanding answers because they're noticing and found out that a lot of these projects are black book. They're not on the money that they approved, and they're demanding answers about it. Good for them. Here's what Stephen Greer says about that.
But this object was retrieved because it became disabled. Some of these retrieval operations are not extraterrestrial, but they would like sometimes the public to think maybe it was, because the bigger secret, I will tell you right now, is not the extraterrestrial issue. It's these technologies, which an unsupervised and frankly illegal operation have, which is a threat to the national security, period. This we will prove. And this is a bigger threat, the existence of these in the hands of unsupervised operations that have escaped the oversight of the President of the Office of the President and the Congress since 1956 to 1960.
And so he then explains the difference between the man-made craft and the ones of extraterrestrial origin, which we've been reverse engineering for years, since the 1940s. And he shows the man-made side by side. So it's important to understand, yes, there are the alien craft that we have. We know that. That's without a doubt. But then we're also been reverse engineering them, and they look close, but not totally like them. So here he gives an example of the differences here.
If I had time, I would run through. We can go through very quickly. I think people in the military and in Congress and the American people need to know the difference between the man-made advanced technologies and how they look and the extraterrestrial vehicles. We're going to run through a side-by-side. You can look and see the ET one on the left, seamless. It is actually created in a material science and technology we don't have time to go into, but we understand that, versus the man-made ones that have components, parts, wires, and what have you. Next. And again. Next. And again. And then you hear on the right, that is the Norton Air Force Base 1988 air show, classified. We have a witness who was in there, and these on the right are man-made. They were late Mercury era, 59 through early 60s in their construction, because we had mastered gravity control in October 1954.
So he goes on from there. Now, one of the most explosive whistleblowers is a member of the military, United States Marine. They're decorated United States Marine. U.S. Marine assigned to the Philippines. A platoon of 6 men discovered a UFO. They came across it after the tsunami and subsequent earthquake and then subsequent tsunami in the Philippines and Indonesia. It was being used in some kind of human trafficking operation. And this is where this story gets crazy. This craft was likely a man-made, reverse-engineered craft, off-the-books craft. And this is a stunning story. Even the Daily Mail confirmed this story. Yesterday, exclusive, Marine vet breaks 14-year silence to make astonishing claim that his 6-man unit saw a hovering octagonal UFO being loaded with weapons by unmarked U.S. forces who threatened them at gunpoint while serving in Indonesia in 2009. So the Marine is Michael Herrera, and he came forward yesterday for the first time and told us this story. Listen.
Thank you all for being here. What I'm about to tell you hasn't been something that I've disclosed until recently in the help of Dr. Greer, among other people, so I appreciate your help with this. In 2009, my unit, which was most decorated infantry battalion in the entire Marine Corps, which was 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines, was called in to do humanitarian assistance operations out in the Philippines, which was Operation Quetzana. And we flew to the southwestern part of the city, which is Padang. Looked a lot different through satellite imagery that I've recently seen. Back then is a lot different, especially because most of it was decimated, on fire, rubble, flooded, you name it, basically the worst kind of scenario you could ever see. We trekked up about 300 meters. When we got to this high point, I was taking video camera, and I had actually turned to the north, which just kind of slopes down. And right there was something that stuck out like a sore thumb, especially with jungle terrain, things like that, vegetation, very green stuff, was something that stuck out so well. It's always going to be basically imprisoned in my mind for the rest of my life, and it has been for 14 years, was something that was rotating, and it was transitioning between colors like a light matte gray as well as a dark matte black. You can see that the craft here actually was roughly about 300 feet. And the reason why I know this is because you could fit 3 of the helicopters that we flew in on underneath this craft. And it had an audible hum to it, kind of like a guitar amp if you were to unplug that, or like a transformer. It's very audible. If I was to hear that sound again, I could tell you, okay, it's probably this thing or something similar to that. It's very distinct. And the way that it was floating, which was about 10, 15, 20 feet off the ground, it was kind of a very eerie thing to see because I've never seen anything like that in my life. When we got up to that point, we were then intercepted by a team of soldiers or rogue military force, if you will. The most concerning thing about this is they all had American dialects. They had American gear. They had OTVs, black. They had black camouflage. They had very similar setups to what we had, but more high speed, something what you would see special operation groups these days have. They had no insignias on. They had no ranks. They had nothing that would signify who they were. They had black ball caps. They had M4A4s that were equipped with ACOGs, which was a step up from what we were currently issued, as well as PEC 16 IR illumination devices that you use for night vision and night patrols, things like that. So we were engaged. We had 8 of them put the drop on us. You could audibly hear them blow the safety selectors off. They basically started screaming at us, telling us what we were doing, we were not allowed to be there, who were we with, what were we doing there, threatened that they could kill us right then and there. We could get lost in the jungle. They could throw us out of a helicopter if they needed to. It was very nerve-wracking at that point, especially looking to my fellow Marines and seeing the